Hi, I'm Scylla A. Joy, and this is another episode on this new YouTube channel. So, today we're looking at singleness and what a blessing it is to be single. So, we started off last week with a spoken word piece about being me and you being you, and I thought that was a good basis to start looking at the series on singleness. So, I wanted to start a series on this topic because it seems to me like within the church and just generally, people feel and act and speak as if life only really gets going when they have a significant other, or they walk down the aisle, or they start, popping out babies. And I thought that nothing could really be further from the truth. And so I wanted to create a series on singleness. So let's get right to it. When I saw this phenomenon, I started praying about it and asking God, so what is your vision for singleness? How should we live out our singleness? And one of the things that came to me was just this statement that there is as much glory in singleness as there is in marriage. And I thought that was so true, that thinking of singleness in terms of glory, in terms of something that is to be celebrated, is so helpful, because so often it's something that seems depressing, that seems discouraging, that seems long and drawn out, when there are so many beautiful opportunities we get as singles. So I thought I could speak about 4 things that remind us of the reason for our singleness, and that singleness is something to be celebrated. The first is that we are all born single. This is a reminder of the fact that God had a purpose in making us single. He had a time that we would go through before we would meet someone else, before we would live with someone else, before we would discover another person. He created us so that we would get to know the world around us, so that we would live in community as an individual. And so just the fact that we were born single is a reminder to tell us that there is a reason for this season of singleness. And let's celebrate that. Number 2 is the unique opportunity that we have as singles from birth to get to know ourselves before knowing someone else. How we think, how we learn, how we grow, how we live in relation to others is a really valuable thing to know about oneself. And it's a beautiful opportunity to do so when we are single. Secondly, to get to know God. It's a unique opportunity to know God, to know what He's like, to live in relationship with Him and what that's like. Singleness is a beautiful time to do that. It's also a unique opportunity to discover our gifts, our talents, and our calling. And one of the things that I find so sad is when people feel that calling doesn't really start until someone else is in the picture, when that's not true. The God that we serve is one that has called us from before we were in the womb. And He has a calling for us in singleness as well as in marriage. So let's seize that opportunity, and we will look more in future episodes as to what we should do in this time. Number 3 is the fact that there are fabulous people who were single their whole lives, and Jesus Christ is one of our prime examples. He changed the world as we know it. He showed us what it meant to know God, to live in relation to Him, what it meant to love others, what it meant to show grace to others. And He did so as a single man. And so did Paul. Paul wrote a lot of the New Testament. He wrote letters to the Galatians, to the Ephesians, to the Philippians, to a lot of churches. And he even said to the church in Corinth, I would prefer if you were as I am, as a single man, because he recognized what a blessing it was to be single and how God uses you in mighty ways as a single person. Lastly, number 4 is that In heaven, we shall be single. So Jesus says when a man comes and asks him who this a certain woman will have as a husband in heaven, he says, at the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. And that means that as a single person, you are like you will be in heaven. And that is not something to mourn because we know in heaven, I mean, we will be blessed and beyond. Surely there is merit in being single, right? Let me just give a disclaimer and say this is not to say that being single is better than being married or that anyone should go and take a vow of singleness or celibacy for life. No, it's just to say that there is reason to celebrate singleness as much as there is reason to celebrate marriage. There is favor in singleness as much as there is favor in marriage. And it's not that God has forgotten you that because you're still single, or that God has favored you or placed you higher if you're married. So, in summary, we were born single, and there's a reason for that season. And secondly, is that we have a unique opportunity as singles, and let's find out what that unique opportunity entails, which we'll look at more in further episodes. Three is that some amazing people were single and made the most of it. Jesus being our prime example, Paul being another. And fourth, in heaven we'll be single. And so surely that has something to say for our single state now. So next week we're going to be looking at the kinds of things one can spend our time doing while single. What kinds of things can we be up to, and how can we make the most of this season? In the meantime, I would love to know one thing that you love about being a single person, or that you loved if you're no longer a single person. And I will start us off. I love being able to spend time with family. My sister, my brother, my sister-in-law, my parents. I love the amount of time that I get to spend with them as a single person. What's yours? And I'm pretty sure angels are single.